Okay, this is what the whole lesson's on. Okay, Pythagorean theorem was developed by a man by Pythagoras. Makes sense, Pythagorean theorem. Okay, and he came up with this theorem to use to find the lengths of unknowns, to find the length of an unknown side in a right triangle. The Pythagorean theorem can only be used with a right triangle. Okay, let's make sure we put that on there. Only used in right triangles. Okay, it's used to find unknown lengths in right triangles. Now, to use Pythagorean theorem, class, you have to make sure that you have two sides given to you to find the third. Now, when you get introduced to sine, cosine, and tangent, you'll be able to use, with only one side length, and maybe another measure of an angle in a right triangle. But again, you guys have not get into trig functions yet. So right now, we have to make sure we're given two lengths to find the third. Okay? All right. What is Pythagorean theorem? Does anyone know what Pythagorean theorem is? Who's heard of it before? Okay? Can I give a volunteer tell me what it is? Ann?
Is it a squared plus b squared equals c squared?
Perfect. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay? A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Bless you. Okay? All right. Now, what does A, B, and C actually stand for? Well, if we give you a diagram or a picture and show you what the parts of a right triangle are. Obviously, in order for it to be a right triangle, you have to have one right angle. You obviously can't have more than one right angle because the sum of all three angles in any triangle can only be 180 degrees. So you're going to have one right angle, okay? Where the two sides that meet at the right angle are called something special. They're called the legs of the right triangle. So we'll call this side A or leg A, and this would be leg then B. Okay? The two side lengths that meet to form the right angle are called the legs of the right triangle. Okay? Now, this longest side of the right triangle has a special name as well. It's called the hypotenuse. Okay? Hypotenuse is always the longest side of our right triangle. Let's make sure we put that down. It's always the longest side of our right triangle, and it always lies opposite of the right angle. Okay, so it's the longest side, and it's also going to be opposite of the right angle. We always denote that by the variable c. Okay, so the two legs are A and B. The hypotenuse is represented by the variable c. The hypotenuse is always the longest side, and it's always opposite of the right angle. Okay? All right, so those are the parts of the right triangle, and that's what we use. We use a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And we use this to find the lengths of any unknown sides of the right triangle. Okay, now that we have all that kind of underlying information, now let's go ahead and start an example. Example 1. Okay? Okay, the lengths given are A equals B, or A equals 5, B equals 12. We need to find C. What are we giving you? What are we giving you in terms of the parts of the right triangle? We're giving you the lengths of the legs, exactly. So we have to find the length, the hypotenuse. So obviously, once we are given two things, we can always find the third by plugging into a squared plus b squared equals c squared. We're going to go ahead and write a squared plus b squared down first, equals c squared. And let's just plug in our a. Now again, a is given to us as what? 5 what? Squared plus
12 squared.
12 squared equals c squared. Okay? What's 5 squared, class?
25.
25. Good. Plus, what's 12 squared?
44.
144 equals c squared. What's 144 plus 25?
169.
169. And guys, how do you get rid of a square?
Square root.
Take the square root. Whatever we do on one side, we do on the other.
Is
So our answer is c equals 13. Now tell me, what did I tell you about the hypotenuse in terms of the length? It's always the what? The longest. Is 13 longer than 5 and 12?
Yeah.
So therefore we know by making sense. We have to make sure that our answer makes sense. And that does make sense because I know by the rule the hypotenuse has got to be the longest of the three sides. And therefore obviously it is. This is what we call a special right triangle, guys. A 5, 12, 13 is called a special right triangle. 5 squared plus 12 squared equals 13 squared is a special right triangle. And remember that square sheet that we gave you, the squares? That's on there, okay? So make sure you understand that. So you need to know some of those special right triangles. All right, let's go ahead and go to our next example. Now this time I'm going to change it up a little bit because this time I'm not going to give you both legs. I'm going to give you a leg and the hypotenuse, and we're going to have to figure out what the length of the other leg is.